What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Future Not Eric here. And did you really think I wasn't going to come at you with an updated Lair of Darkness profile after the, of course, obvious red reboot ban and the last trickle of support that we've received from Darkwing Blast, or generic Fiend support that actually does buff up this deck quite considerably, as I mentioned multiple times in my previous Lair of Darkness profile. Now, obviously, this is a fan favorite on the channel. This channel, I suppose, is getting a reputation for being a trap-based channel. Lots of Eldritch, Labyrinth, Lair of Darkness, Trap BA, and this is just continuing that theme and updating. Probably, I can confidently say, probably one of my favorite decks of all time, and the deck that actually got this channel started. The deck has received, like I said, support from Darkwing Blast, and this profile, I wouldn't say is the definitive, complete, final version of the deck. There's some cards that I don't have access to that I would replace with cards that I'm playing here, and there are some ideas that I'm messing around in this profile just to test them out and see how I like them. So please, obviously, take this as a shell. There's a couple of things I say in here in the profile where I speak on how you can't really cut it or change it. I do agree with that, obviously, and I approve of that, but there are plenty spaces for the deck to improve and plenty of flex spots in the deck itself. That being said, moving into this Ishizu Tier Element format, we are still playing the anti-meta. We're playing the bad decks with good cards, and let's just get right into it. To start, we are, of course, playing our 3 ulti tour guides. I did say in my last profile that this card wasn't very good. I was just playing them because it's tour guide, and I don't agree with that anymore. I actually think this is a really, really awesome normal summon in the deck now, and that is because of her sister Muckraker from the Underworld, that this card becomes a lot better. So when you normal summon your tour guide, your normal line of thought or normal combo would be then to special the best Lady of Lament, Lilith. But obviously, once Lilith is summoned off of tour guide, her effect is negated. So all she's good for then is a tribute, and then you'd better hope that you have Lair of Darkness on the board. Not anymore. So what you end up doing then is you'll link the two into Muckraker from the Underworld. Very, very awesome card. And then her effect reads as follows. She cannot be used as link material the turn it is link summoned. That's, of course, to avoid link climbing into link 4s in your first turn. If a monster you control will be destroyed by a battle card effect, you contribute a fiend monster instead. This does not exclude herself, which is very awesome. You can target one fiend monster in your graveyard except Muckraker from the Underworld, discard one card, and if you do, special summon that monster. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of this turn except fiend monsters. Obviously, that condition means nothing. But what this means is that after you normal summon your tour guide, you can special summon your Lilith, which will have 2000 attack but has no effect. You then link the two into Muckraker, you discard your card, you summon back your Lilith. Your Lilith is then a 2000 beat stick with her effect. You can then immediately tribute summon your Muckraker and then get access to your trap in your turn 1, or in fact you could leave your Muckraker on board if you have substantial traps already. It just means that you have a live Lilith to go in turn 1 off of tour guide, which is something that we could never really do before. Obviously, tour guide is not limited to only summoning Lilith. We do have our other Ladies of Lament, and for this profile specifically, I've decided to bump up Alice to 3. Now, there's multiple reasons for this. The first reason is I decided to cut back to the front because Alice essentially does the same thing on a normal summon. Yes, it's slow and you can't use it during your opponent's turn, but my thought process was you back to the front your Lilith and she's got 0 defense. And yes, you then have your tribute off of your Lair of Darkness, but because of the way this deck functions now, you almost always have a Lilith on board anyway. So the back to the front just feels like not even win more, it just feels like you're gaining advantage that doesn't actually push you forward. It just gives you card advantage. It just gives you monsters, bodies that don't actually do anything. Whereas Alice is basically back to the front on steroids. Once she's normal summoned, you Monster Reborn back Lady of Lament, and then of course she's also an extender. So if you normal summon your tour guide and she's hit with Ash, Vela, Imperm, anything other than Gamma, you can then special summon Alice by banishing a trap from your hand or graveyard, and now you've got 2 level 3s on board, and you can do quite a lot with that with the build that runs Prosperity, which unfortunately is not the build I'm running because I don't have access to prosperities. But it also means you can just get into Muckraker, you can make some going second plays by making Zeus off a Fortune Tune. It actually opens up a lot of different trees or different branches of the way you can play the deck. So I do think she's a 3 of. If I would cut anything from this package so far, the only cards I would consider if you really want to play other cards is 1 Alice and 1 Tour Guide. But I do like these ratios just because Alice, every time I played her using the last list, every time I drew her, it felt really, really strong. And it is nice to have, I suppose, another normal summon, although all of these are technically normal summons. Then our final 2 Ladies of Lament is our Malice and our Loris. I did in my last profile say Malice should be bumped up to 2, and that was because of a quick effect tribute. I don't agree with that anymore. I think the 1 of is perfectly adequate and fine. And then obviously Loris is insane. Being able to draw your cards as well as recycle your traps is just, it's incredible. And then when she's tributed, destroyed by an opponent's card effect, you then get to target a normal trap you gave it and set it. So she's just recycling everything that you've used and gets all your traps back, which means you don't have to run infinite amounts of traps. You can get away with running a smaller package. And that is the Ladies of Lament package going there. Next, moving on, we are playing the other Lair of Darkness monster, being Arima. This is obviously our terraforming for Lair of Darkness, but it is also our draw 1 off of a dark tribute, or if it tributes a dark monster other than itself, it adds a dark monster with 2000 or more defense. Now, in the last profile, I said the best card to add off of this was Lord of the Heavenly Prism. I do still agree to this to some extent, and that's why we are playing the 1. Getting that protection, being able to set anything is absolutely insane. However, I've replaced the other Lord of the Heavenly with Lady Labyrinth of the Silver Castle. Now, it is very difficult not to just change this entire deck into a Labyrinth deck. I'm not going to lie, because I'm so fond of these cards. However, I have gotten away with playing 1 Lady Labyrinth, and that's because of just her absolutely insane effect. Being able to set any trap card off of any normal trap card's activation, which does make her stand out from the other Labyrinth cards. All the other Labyrinth cards, you need to remove a monster by a normal trap card's effect. She just says, hey, if you've activated a normal trap, special summon me, or hey, you can then set any other trap, which you can then use in your follow-up turn. She's also really, really difficult to get over, because once you have a set card, she can't be targeted or destroyed by card effect, which means she almost always has to be run over by battle, which puts your opponent in some sticky positions. And yeah, I really like this ratio of 1 and 1, just because it is searchable, and both of them technically do the same thing in different ways. Obviously getting access to cards in your main deck. And that is actually it for the monsters. Like I said, you can make an exception with your tour guide and Alice and play maybe a Sangan and an Ash if you really want to do that off of the ties play, just so you can have a hand trap as well. But I just feel like hand traps this format don't do much, and I'd much rather steam pile through boards rather than try and stop them with one measly hand trap and just go neg 1. But yeah. Next up, we of course have the win con button. If you resolve this, you must always win. Obviously, your main target for this is your level 3 Dark Fiend monsters. And yeah, absolutely insane card. The restriction of not being able to battle or to special summon afterwards doesn't really mean anything at all, because once you resolve this, you've got your ladies on board, and it's very difficult for your opponent to play. Then the card that should be Prosperity is 3 Extrav. The only reason it should be Prosperity is because the extra deck is becoming a lot tighter, having to now play 3 Muckraker with Prosperity you could play 1 or even 2, but I don't have Prosperity, so my extra deck right now is kitted to play Extrav, but I do have extra deck cards here to the side to show you how I would play the extra deck if I had Prosperity. And I do think in this format where you need to see particular cards, I do think that Prosperity is better, although Extrav drawing into 2 really good traps it feels really good. Then of course we are still playing Super Poly. This isn't very good against a tier element matchup, obviously triggering their stuff, but it does slow them down a little bit, I feel, getting off important bodies off their board, and just, you know, not stopping them entirely, but it does slow them down. And then against pretty much any other deck, once you have Lair of Darkness up and this, it's insane. Like no other deck other than tier element can recover from this card, so we decided to play it. The only other card, if you're running into tier element issues a lot, the only card I'd recommend to switch this out for is Dimension Shifter. Shifter doesn't really hurt the deck that much. Of course it does interfere with that tour guide Muckraker play, the Monster Reborn play, but I feel like the shifter, just being able to skip your opponent's turn and set up, is really valuable if you're running into meta that much. But of course, at the locals that I play, there isn't that much meta, so I still think this is a card worth playing. Then of course you play the card that does it all, Lair of Darkness, and this is Lair of Darkness, so we have to play my classic package of the Metaverse plus the one Mystic Mine. No other Mystic Mines in the side deck this time. I just feel like a lot of meta decks are prepared for Mystic Mine and a lot of the anti-meta decks just don't be affected by Mystic Mine. So it's just the 1-in-1, and it's an easy side out if I really need to, and if you're in a sticky position, it grabs you. I think I've been playing this package since I've started playing the deck, and since Mystic Mine's been out, obviously. Now, for the main part of the show, the traps. What traps have I decided to go with for this format? So, of course, we're playing the one trap trick. You have to. This is 3 of every single trap for your Lilith. You cannot play this deck without at least 1, but I would not recommend playing 3, just because they get rid of your traps, even though you can recur them off of your Loris. We are playing 2 IDP, insane card. I try to go with traps that I could activate, like in my Labyrinth profile I said, whenever I can, so there's almost never restriction to activate them. So we went to the Paleos and Compulsors again, and then the final 4 traps are quote-unquote the spiciest ones. It's the ones that I feel like are the heaviest impact right now, without damaging my deck, and it is 2 of Destructive Daruma Karma Cannon. This card, on paper, is phenomenal. It's a Book of Eclipse, and if it doesn't Book of Eclipse them, it sends the cards like Evenly would. Your player has to send. Insane. Obviously in this deck you're not link climbing too much, especially in the Extrav build, so it doesn't affect you much. Flips your cards, your turn you flip them back up, you carry on. Your opponent, you flip them when they summon, they can't flip them back up, so now they can't use them for link materials. Yes, they can fuse, and again, unfortunately it's not great against tier elements, but it's good against any link turbo deck. And then once they get their big links up, you then just flip this and they have to send them. It's insane. Against Adignista, it sends their big link 6. Card's insane. I think this actually might be a 3 of in Eldritch. Main reason being is it resets the golden lands to your spell and trap card zone, because they're always considered traps. So it just means in your turn you flip your golden lord up or summon a golden lord, and now all your traps are live again, which is, I think, really, really awesome. Insane card, definitely trying it out. And then the last 2 cards, just because of the tier element matchup, and I mean a lot of decks use the graveyard, to be fair. Different Dimension Ground, again, you don't need your graveyard all that much, and in your turn you'll be setting up, and because this is only effective during your opponent's turn, or you only use it during your opponent's turn, it means that whatever you tribute off their board or whatever leaves the field gets banished, which I think is really valuable. So yeah, that is my trap lineup. I do believe that is a clean 40 or 41. I actually am not sure. And then moving to the extra deck. So, like I said, I'll show the actual extra deck you should be playing with Prosperity, but this is what I'm playing now because I don't have Prosperity. We are playing 3 Muckraker. I've explained this card already. This card's insane, and it's not only good for Monster Reborning Lilith. You can Monster Reborn any Fiend, which means you can Monster Reborn Lady as well, which is insane. We are playing our Super Poly package, so we're playing 1 Triferatum, whatever, the 3 Dark Monsters. We are playing 2 Starving Venom, Fusion Dragon, just because of Lair of Darkness. This doesn't have any other restrictions, you can just fuse off the Dark Monsters. We're playing 1 Garura because it does have that tiny restriction on the same attribute, same type, and then of course we're playing the Mud Dragon to counteract that Garura, where it's same attribute, different type. I wish I had more space. Obviously, I'll show you how this changes with Prosperity, which it does ever so slightly. And then for the main thing that this deck does, going second, we are playing the Zeus package. So we're playing 2 Zeus, 2 Downed, 2 Fortune Tune. This is again because of Extrav, and 1 Nightmare Shark. The Nightmare Shark is just so that we can get into that Downed. So you make Nightmare Shark, you don't even use its effect, you just attack into something because it's huge, it's 2000, and then you make Downed and then Zeus. So how this would change is I would cut 1 of the Downed, I would cut 1 of the Fortune Tune, I would cut the 1 Starving Venom, and I would cut the 1 Muckraker, and I would put in, that is 4 cards out, these 4 cards out, and the 4 cards that would go in would be IP, Unicorn, Avramax, and Underworld Goddess. Now, there is a particular reason for this. Obviously, an IP made Avramax is insane. It's literally almost unkillable. But the main reason actually is because of a muckraker play. So if you open up Tour Guide plus Alice plus a trap, you're going quite a bit neg to get this combo off. But I feel like at the very end it does make up for it. So for instance, say our hand was this. We've got Tour Guide, we've got our Alice, we've got our Different Dimension Ground, and we've got our Ice Dragon's Prison. What you can end up doing is you can normal summon your Tour Guide, then special summon. It actually, at this point, it doesn't matter. You'd probably want to summon your Lilith anyway, just to get her in grave, just have access later on with more normal summonable Alices. You would then link into your Muckraker, and you would discard any one of your cards. So let's say the Paleozoic, because you're going quite neg on this combo anyway. You'd Monster Reborn your Lilith, probably in attack mode. You then would banish your Paleozoic Dynamiscus to special summon your Alice, and then you'd link the two Alices into, well, Alice and Lilith into your IP. Now, that actually wasn't too bad. You still have two cards in hand, could be two traps. You can then set the two cards, and then what happens now is during your opponent's main phase, you can immediately link, because it's no longer the turn she was link summoned, into an Avramax that's made with IP, which is extremely difficult to out. And you still have two other cards in hand that you can then potentially play with, hopefully being traps. So just a little combo, but of course that combo becomes a lot more difficult if you're playing Extravagance, because you can banish a single piece of this 3-piece combo, and now you can't do it anymore. But I probably am going to end up playing it anyway, because you don't always see Extravagance, and you do sometimes see Tour Guide plus Alice, which is really, really awesome. Also, you don't always banish all the things that you need to do this little combo. And then the Unicorn is just in case you want to go into Unicorn, spin something back, or if you have another body, you can go into Underworld Goddess. So, and then of course you still have your super body targets, which aren't at risk of being banished because you can pick, and then you still have the double Zeus play, because you do need double Zeus. That is literally, like I said, one of the only ways you can go second in this deck. Side deck, still work in progress obviously, but the card you need to side or even main is Shifter. Every deck that I'm playing this format has to play Shifter in some capacity. We're playing Dark Ruler, and the reason we're playing Dark Ruler is for the cheeky combo Dark Ruler evenly. Obviously being able to Dark Ruler and then resolve ties is also insane, so definitely needed. And then we are still playing the 3 Judgments so that we don't just auto lose against Hobby's Feather Duster, which has sort of quote unquote replaced Red Reboot as the win con, but there's ways you can play around it just by playing the deck naturally. And of course, a lot of the traps that we're playing now are floodgate-ish in nature. We are playing the 1 Harpies and we have the Pankratops just for our fellow back row players. And then the final card is a card that's not great, but it's technically the idea or searchable off of Lady. So if you're really struggling against like a runic matchup, you can then just resolve this against that runic deck or any deck that's heavy on spells or traps, and just auto win off of that. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the deck profile, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, the only big changes I would make are those 3 Prosperity and the appropriate changes to the extra deck. I think I'm probably going to look to pick up Prosperities just because of that little niche combo. And yes, it does lose to hand traps, and yes, it's not the most efficient, but I feel like it's worth playing because an Avramax made with an IP is a win con against most decks anyway. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, well, I hope you enjoyed that deck profile. Of course, had to update this deck. Best deck ever, one of my favorite decks, and I hope you enjoyed it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Future Knight signing out.